And there we go. We got a giant cat. That's okay. I didn't know what I expected. Hello and welcome to Stable Diffusion Experimental. Today we're going to be looking at how to use Stable Diffusion 3 via API key in comfyUI. Now, a quick disclaimer: Stable Diffusion 3 has been released to use with API keys, but it hasn't been released as a checkpoint. What does this mean to you? It means basically that SD3 right now can only be used with API calls, and as such, it's not free to use. In order to use it, you need to buy some credits. The credits are going to cost you around 6 cents of US dollar for image generation, and if you want to wait for Stability AI to release the free to use checkpoint in the future, then you can absolutely do so. But in the meantime, if you want to use it with comfyUI, there's a way to do that. And I'm gonna guide you through the whole process of setting up comfyUI workflow and setting up your API keys and then generate the images. So there's a few different ways to set up a workflow in comfyUI that can use SD3 right now. But since Stable Diffusion is released by Stability AI and Stability AI has released a workflow and nodes on their own GitHub, I'd rather use those. So we're gonna head over to Stability AI GitHub page for comfyUI SAI API. Here we can see that GitHub has been updated yesterday, and we can see an image of a cat wearing a hat with API on top and Stability on its shirt. This image contains the workflow, so in a second we're gonna drag and drop this image into a comfyUI workspace. But first, let's check the requirements. We can see under usage that we need to add an API key, so we're gonna need that as well. But first, let's save this image or drag it and drop it into a comfyUI workspace. So we dragged and dropped it into our comfyUI workspace, and we can see that we have a lot of missing nodes. So the first thing we're gonna do is go over to Manager, and then we're gonna install missing custom nodes. We're going to click on it and we're going to see Stability API nodes for comfyUI that's missing. We're going to click on install, and after it's done installing, it's going to ask us to restart comfyUI. We're going to click on restart button, and comfyUI is going to tell us that it's reconnecting to the instance. Once comfyUI has finished restarting, we can refresh the page and we're going to be greeted with the new nodes we have now. So now we're going to inspect them one by one. Starting from the left, we have Stability Image Core. Then we have Stability SD3. This node connects to various other nodes. We have a preview image node for an image generated with Stability SD3 node. We have Stability Remove Background, which previews an image with the removed background. We have Stability Creative Upscale and a preview image node for that as well. Then we have Stability Outpainting and a preview image node as well. Then on the bottom we have Stability Inpainting, which feeds from a load image node and outputs a preview image node. And the last node we have is a Stability Research and Replace node that outputs a preview image. Now, before getting into what these nodes actually do, we have a single thing that appears in every single node, and that is API key override. In this field, we need to input our own Stability AI API key. So now I'm going to show you how to get that and get some credits in order to generate images with Stability AI SD3. So right here on this webpage, you will find the link in the description below. We have all the documentation for Stability AI newest SD3. If we click on pricing here, we can see all the different pricings for all the different models they have available to use via API key. We can see here that for SD3, it's going to take 6.5 credits per API call, while SD3 Turbo is going to take 4 credits, while Core is going to take 3 credits. When you compare it with SDXL 1.0 or SD 1.6, it's going to take a lot more credits than those. SDXL costs between 0.2 and 0.6 credits, for example. So how do we get credits? Well, if we look over here at buying credits, we can see that we have an initial 25 free credits, but additional credits can be purchased. And the credits are priced at $10 for 1,000 credits. In order to purchase them, we need to go over to our account page. If we click on the link, we are greeted with our welcome screen. And if you don't have an account, you can sign up, otherwise you can just log in. So right now in my account page, I have 25 credits and I can buy some more for $10. Please mind that $10 is the minimum amount to buy. If we put in like $5 and then click, we're gonna see that the amount reverts to $10. On the other hand, we can buy more. So if we input $20, for example, we're gonna buy 2,000 credits. So if we click on the buy button, we are gonna be greeted with a pay with card page. Now, of course, I'm not gonna show you my personal information. I'm not gonna fall for that. But if you wanna buy some more credits instead of the 25 you have available at first, you can do that over here. Now, going back to our account page, we can see that there's API keys here on the left. If we click on that, we can see that we have API keys over here. You can click on the eye icon to reveal the API keys. Again, I'm not going to fall for that. And we can copy them to the clipboard. So we're going to copy those to the clipboard, and we're going to back to our comfyUI window. Now, back to the comfyUI window, we want to input that key into our API key override field. So click on that, Ctrl V the key, and click OK. And please note that you will have to do that for each single node that you want to use. But if you don't care for some nodes like the Stability Search and Replace node, you can just either delete it or just bypass it. So let's start with Core and SD3. Core and SD3 refer to the two models that were available for pricing at the web page that I showed you just a second ago. Core appears to be a more basic model, while SD3 appears to be a more refined model. Inside the Core node, we can find a positive prompt field, a negative prompt field, a seed, a control after generate field, which is either random, fixed, incremental, etc., an output format, which right now is PNG, and an aspect ratio. In the SD3 node, instead, we can select a model, and we can select a model between SD3 and SD3 Turbo. If you're worried about credits, SD3 Turbo is slightly less costly than SD3. And over here as well, we can see a positive prompt field, a negative prompt field, a seed, a control after generate field, strength, aspect ratio, and output format. Now the weird thing is that here, strength, aspect ratio, and output format are kind of scuffed. I haven't changed anything since I installed it via the comfyUI manager, so I'm going to try and make sense of it after running the first generation. You can see here that the output format should be PNG like in the core node, but instead it's 16:9, which should be in the aspect ratio field. So my guess is that each input is one field lower than it should be. It makes sense for 16:9 to be under aspect ratio, and it makes sense for 0.8 to be under strength. So let's try and fix that. Let's put 0.8 here in strength and 16:9 here in aspect ratio. Let's see under output format, and there it is, we have PNG or JPEG. So yeah, if you find this issue yourself, you can just fix it like that. So for a first test, let's disable everything that is on Core or SD3 by selecting Bypass on every single node that is in Core or SD3. And there we go. Right now we have only Core and SD3 active. We are gonna input a positive prompt. Let's say we want a fashion photography of a young woman wearing Miu Miu haute couture in a baroque room filled with sunlight coming from a skylight. We're going to leave the negative prompt field empty because I want to see how it works with positive prompt field only, and we're going to copy the positive prompt field over to our SD3 node as well. I'm going to put both previews side by side so that I can compare them, and I'm going to hit QPrompt. And there we go, we got our images free of charge because we had 25 credits available. Before delving into these images, let's go back to our Stability AI account page and check the status of our credits. And there we go. If we go into the billing page, we can see that we now have 15.5 credits remaining. So for these two generations, we used 9.5 credits. Now let's look at these images. Now from a fashion photographer point of view, the dress on the left is not really Miu Miu. There are some things in the prompt that influenced it, like baroque. It seems like the core model kind of translated the environment settings into the clothing and general mood as well. But if we look at the image on the right hand side, which is made with SD3, we can see that the clothing is much more similar to Miu Miu looks and feel. Also, prompt adherence is much stronger. We actually have a skylight in the right picture, whereas there's no skylight to be seen in the left picture. Both images honestly are really good, especially when you realize that this is a base model. We don't have fine-tuned models made by the community yet. We don't have no Juggernaut, we don't have any RealViz, we don't have anything else but a model that can be called via API. So honestly, as a literal first impression for me, because this is the two first images that I generated using these models, big thumbs up. Now, I don't want to be the one who says back in my day, but back in my day, SDXL and SD1.5 as base models were much worse than this, at least from what I remember. So now let's go inspect all the other nodes that we left out right now. We have the Stability Creative Upscale. We're gonna click on bypass to activate it since it was first bypassed. We're gonna copy the prompt from the previous node and we're gonna input right here. I'm gonna leave it just like that. I'm gonna input my key over here and I'm gonna hit Q prompt. And there we go. Honestly, pretty amazing result right off the bat. Yes, the dress is being influenced a lot by the Baroque setting, and it's not the same dress as before. We can fix that, I guess, by lowering the creativity setting. But the detail in there, my god, for a base model this is fantastic. It corrected a lot of the anatomy, the lighting is amazing, and the intricate details of the dress and of the environment are absolutely stunning. Even the background and the city outside the window, it's absolutely stunning. The shadow here is wrong, but apart from that, I can see almost no issue. So now let's try Outpainting. I am gonna disable the upscale node just in case. It shouldn't recalculate anything since the seed is fixed, but I don't wanna risk spending any credits, or at least any more credits than I need to. So I'm gonna right click and click on bypass. Now I'm gonna copy again the prompt from the previous node and paste it over here. And I'm gonna copy the API key and paste it in the API key override field. Let's hit Q prompt and see what happens. And there we go. It's a bit scuffed, I'm not gonna lie. It changed the perspective a lot, and maybe it was too much of an outpainting. 512 in all directions, it's maybe a bit too much. So let's do another experiment. I am gonna re-enable the Upscaler node and I'm gonna feed it into the Outpainting node. And next, I am gonna do 256 on the left and 256 on the right. And I'm gonna zero down on up and down. So it should just expand the image to the sides. Let's hit Q prompt again and see what happens. And unfortunately, we have encountered an error. The payload cannot be larger than 10 megabytes in size. It appears that our upscaled image is too large to be handled by the Outpainting node. Not a big deal. We can just relink the SD3 output to the Outpainting node and rerun the prompt. And there we go, outstanding result. The perspective is much the same, the ambience is the same, we got some nice light coming from the windows, we got some nice glare effect in the lens. This is amazing. So since before the payload was too large coming from the upscaled image, let's upscale this one instead. So I am going to link the output from the Outpainting node into the upscaling input. And I'm going to hit Q prompt again. And there we go. We got much more detail in the outpainted areas right now. And honestly, amazing. I'm really happy with this kind of results. Again, mostly because this is a base model. All right, we tried the core model, we tried the SD3 model, we tried upscaling, we tried outpainting. Now let's try inpainting and then search and replace. So I'm going to right click and click on bypass to enable Stability Inpainting node. And I'm going to copy the API key inside of this field. Then, since it's asking for both an image and a mask, Then, since it's asking for both an image and a mask, I am going to input the image that we just created, and I am going to open it into our mask editor. So I'm going to right click and select Open in Mask Editor. Here I am going to select the face and roughly the whole body, and I'm going to ask for a quick change of clothes and for a different model. So I'm going to ask for a young Asian woman. And side note, I would really like if the default for young woman wouldn't be white basically all the time. And I'm going to add wearing Balenciaga ready to wear couture. I'm going to hit Q prompt and we're going to see how that works. And there we go. We got a nice change of clothes, a nice change of models. We got some remnants from the previous picture. For example, it did not care for the hair, it transformed it into a sort of crown, and we got some blonde hair in the background as well. So some issues there, but overall, I didn't want to select the hair strands on the top of the head to see what it could do with those. And overall, yeah, it might be a masking issue, it could be a user error, it could be that the Inpainting model is kind of struggling with those things, but everything else is really good. So now let's try the last node. We're gonna enable the search and replace node by clicking on bypass, and we're gonna use the Stability SD3 image as our input. And honestly, I'm gonna leave it just like the default. I really want to see how it can substitute a person with a cat in this kind of situation. So I'm going to enable the API keys and hit Q prompt. And we got an error. It's expecting JPEG, PNG or WebP, but it received nothing. So why is that? Well, PNG should have been in the output format, I guess. So I am going to select it over here. And I am going to delete this PNG and see what happens over here. Oh yeah, that's the negative prompt field. It appears that the PNG format has been pushed in the negative prompt field, and that was the error. So if you're trying that, remember to delete PNG from that field and enable it in the output format field. So let's hit Q prompt again. And there we go. We got a giant cat. That's okay. I didn't know what I expected. That wasn't it. I guess the person was replaced and the perspective is not quite the same. Or maybe it's a very tiny house. Who knows? But the cat is very good. And also the lighting is kind of consistent. So could it be better? Yes. Is it funny? Yes. So that was basically it. These are the nodes that we have available from the official GitHub page from Stability AI. The only node that I couldn't get working is the remove background node, since it kept asking me for an API key, but there was no field to input it. There might be a workaround by creating a text file inside the folder that holds your API keys, but I'm not gonna try that because I don't want to break anything. I'm sorry if I'm still kind of laughing, but the cat's staring at me from the right corner, and look at that cat. It's among us. But yeah, if you want to try SD3, you know now how to do it inside of comfyUI. You don't have to rely on any external third-party web interfaces. You can just run it on your comfyUI workspace as you're used to. And even if you don't want to pay anything, you still got 25 credits to use. So those credits should run you at least a couple of generations and you can test it out. I still have some credits available, so if you want to leave some comments with some prompts, I can try and test those out for you, and I will leave links to, let's say, ImageEar, where you can see the resulting images, and we can all test it out together. That's gonna be all for today. My name is Andrea Baioni. You can find me on Instagram at risunobushi or on the web at andreabaioni.com. And I'm gonna leave you with a slideshow of SD3 images that I just generated. See you next time.